Good morning. Thanks for coming. My name's Robin Shapiro. I run a company called STiKi, and I've been asked, and I'm very pleased to moderate the panel this morning, why brands are putting mobile in the driver's seat. We have two, I would say, distinguished guests who are not so much of the direct response industry as many of you practice it, but operate in a very big way in a lot of areas that have issues that overlap a lot of your concerns. Each of them, respectively, are senior vice presidents for digital within the two major operating units, a company called HSN. HSN sells close to $4 billion worth of stuff to American consumers every year. The two principal operating units or brands, although there are a number of them, under the umbrella of HSN itself, and then Cornerstone brands. And our guest this morning, Bryon Colby, is with Cornerstone brands based in Cincinnati, Ohio, and Ed Deutscher is with HSN based in Tampa. The powers that be and the PR flacks at HSN admonished me not to say this more than once, but these companies really descend from the brand which some of you may recall from an earlier era as Home Shopping Network. HSN was spun out of that fantastic incubator of digital enterprises as a public company in, what, 2005, or was it more recent? I think 2005.
Yep.
So $4 billion a year worth of stuff, but what's interesting and I think sort of relevant to those of you and those of us who work on similar problems every day is these are companies which started not as digital companies, but as really powerhouses in sort of 20th century legacy ways of marketing. Catalogs, in the case of Cornerstone, and advertising, not really advertising, but selling on TV in the case of HSN. But they have increasingly recognized the importance of taking those audiences and those customers and those brands and bringing them into the digital domain. And perhaps even more recently, finding that the digital domain is getting onto the smaller screen, which we all carry in our pocket, which is mobile. So this is going to be a conversation, both panel presentation, and also, I think, an interactive conversation with many of you about the issues with the trends and the issues as you're moving from a world in which you were selling stuff from catalogs or on TV to doing it a lot of different ways. HSN even has, I think, a couple of dozen retail bricks and mortar establishments around the country.
Yes, sir.
And is able to engage its customers and audiences in a variety of different ways, including video on demand, video on the mobile device, purchase by remote in some cases, the classic catalog in the store, on mobile, tablet, PC. And in the course of all of those different avenues, I think have collected a lot of interesting data and insights about the consumer journey and where the touch points are that bring the consumer either to learn about products, consider their products versus alternative offerings, and then where business is transacted. So with that, I'd like to introduce Ed and Bryon and ask them each to say a little bit about their backgrounds and their responsibilities, and then we'll get into a series of questions and answers. Thanks.
Sure. Go ahead. Sure. You start.
So again, real pleasure to be here. Definitely echo what Robin said, like making this an interactive session, I think would be key, especially, it's a great intimate setting, so we're able to have those conversations. I've been at Cornerstone for the past 5 years. It was real interesting. You're probably in the same boat. When I first joined, I didn't even realize at first when I started talking to them what Cornerstone was. The Cornerstone Brands is made up of a portfolio of 5 separate brands. There's Frontgate, Ballard Designs, Garnet Hill, Grandin Road, Improvements Catalog. So there are 5 overall in the home and apparel space. We, traditionally a catalog was our main marketing channel. It shifted where we're now at a point where approximately 70% of all our sales are transacted online, with then what we're going to be focusing on today, increasing amount are occurring now over mobile devices. both tablet, but especially over smartphone. And my area of responsibilities at the company is across the portfolio, managing a digital strategy as well as the operational and day-to-day functions of the brands also.
So hi, I'm Ed with HSN. I've been there, I'm coming on about 13 years. So I've actually been there almost since the onset of digital at HSN. It's been a fun ride. I can say back in 2009 is when we first focused on mobile. And it was interesting and fun because there were probably less than a handful of us who were at least toying with the idea of trying to bring the experience to this unique platform. And even with, as new devices were hitting market, we were sort of just scrambling. And I could tell a quick story. Everyone sure is familiar. I mean, video is our bread and butter, of course. And I was very adamant when we were first launching our first iPhone app in that we needed to be live streaming on the device. And very few were doing it. I think I could find only one other company, and they were some international company, news company, doing it. And I remember at the time, because AT&T was the only carrier who had the iPhone, our app got rejected, I think, about 6 times. And every time was because AT&T kept saying we were pushing too much bandwidth over their network because we were live streaming. So it was a fun exercise. It was frustrating. But actually, the interesting thing, if anything, I feel like we set the standard for now how to best deliver some of these experiences over those devices, because there was no spec existed whatsoever. So since then, we've been sort of hyper-focused and doubling down on mobile. Mobile is approaching almost 25% of our global business. So pretty impressive in terms of the short amount of time that these mediums and platforms had existed. And as Bryon referenced, I mean, really looking at the smartphone as being sort of the opportunity for how we continue to differentiate and distort through these devices.
So, Ed, you mentioned that 25% of your business is now coming in through mobile devices. Mm-hmm. Just to be clear, is that sort of the first encounter is on the mobile device and the transaction maybe somewhere else, or is that actually transactions occurring on the mobile device?
These are actual transactions occurring on the device. It may be possible that someone is watching our TV broadcast and then has their device in hand, which is something we know that they're doing. And we're capturing that demand at that moment through making the transaction as easy as possible on the device itself.
And that's been one of the biggest shifts, and really over the past 2 years, where traffic has been increasing, over the past 5 years. It's really past year and a half, past 2, where the actual transactional components, where the demand generation, where the transactions happening right there on the device has started to pick up. And some of, what we've always discussing, some of the reasons for that are the size of the phones are increasing, much easier to buy. As, marketers, we're doing a much better job at learning how to actually how to communicate with people on those devices and building better, whether it's mobile apps or mobile websites. So it is really made when you talk about, okay, it's a $4 billion entity, and we're approaching it between 20 and 25% of all transactions are on those devices. Yeah.
Of the 25% you mentioned, the 20, how many of those what percentage are new customers versus returning customers?
So it's not a number we share, but I will say we do see, actually, I'll say it in this manner, right now from an acquisition opportunity, mobile is driving that highest percentage. So we're seeing more of our new customers coming through our mobile platforms, and that is strictly on the handset.
And a lot of it, you could break it down even further, where if you break it to mobile web or a mobile app.
Right.
Mobile app tends to be more returning users, I believe, just because you do get your highest value users using it. On a mobile web, it's where people are discovering the products and the companies.
Yeah, and I'll continue on that. I think that's something we've learned over the years is we've gone at least at HSN, I'll say we went very wide, very quickly. So we were focused on ubiquity across the platforms, whether it be iOS or Android, whether it be handset, tablet, and I think we did a good job of sort of going wide, but at the same time, we're now at a point of where we need to differentiate across, because there is a different customer makeup depending upon what device they're using, but also what experience they're using. So as Bryon referenced, from a mobile website, again, people could just be naturally searching, right? They're doing a Google search. They're fully expecting then for your site potentially to appear if they come across one of your products. But for you to download an app and keep it, you probably have some propensity to the brand. You know who they are, but therefore that experience needs to be much different. You're an existing customer. They're expecting, whether it be a loyalty play or some uniqueness for them, to give them a reason to want to keep your app. because there needs to be some value at the end of the day. I mean, I can tell you for myself, there's still plenty of retailers that I still go to their mobile website because I have no value or no need to keep their app on my device. I don't need 100 apps, right? And I'm not going there every day. So what's that value prop that you're delivering and differentiating within the app experience?
So you mentioned 70% on the lighting?
Yes. So at Cornerstone, we're now 70% of all transactions are generated via digital means. It's, again, catalog is still our biggest trigger in terms of marketing channel, but yes.
So how about the HSN?
It's about 45 for us.
So still good.
It is still, I mean, it's sort of, I feel like it's going to flip any minute. We're certainly, very close. I think the thing that we evaluate, and what's interesting also is, if you look at our demographic, right, it's mainly women, but also, the average age of our customer is 59, right? It is an older demographic, and we know that. But what's interesting, I mean, again, to still talk about the fact that 25% of all transactions are happening on mobile, it's amazing. The key point is everyone's using it. And again, I think the opportunity, of course, is to figure out how do you make it easy and fast. And that's what we've been focused on. And, I came from the technology side over my years at HSN, and, speed matters. I mean, there's no other way to say it. It really does. And really thinking about, it's not just designing for one size fits all. You really have to design for these smaller screens. Even though the screens are getting bigger, people have an expectation that again, take address, for example. I shouldn't have to populate every possible box for an address. If I put in the zip, it should sort of pre-populate city and state,
Yep.
right? So those are things that we've constantly evolved over time and getting smarter about, because there's just a natural expectation now of what these devices should do.
Right. And it's a good point, because while we're talking about video and use cases, the challenges with that is speed. With that, I mean, HSN's done a great job of solving it, but when we're looking at the different devices, it comes down to use cases. Ed explained, okay, with the app, loyalty's big, it's recurring, it's what people go in on the website, it's on a mobile website, it's different than on a regular desktop site in user behavior. So we're maturing as an industry in making sure that, again, it goes back to the point, it's not one size fits all.
So Bryon, when we were talking about this earlier, one of the things I found interesting was how the kind of device or the portal that one is using to arrive at the experience has over time affected the day part in which you've seen your activity. You want to talk a little bit about that in terms of the evolution from desktop to the mobile device now?
Sure. It seems like a long, it's maybe been 7 years or so. I mean, it used to be where the majority of transactions would occur during the hours of 9 to 5. Primary reason for that is because the broadband was only available at work. Then once you started to get broadband in the home, that's when we saw the shift to, okay, it happened after work. There was a lot of actual purchasing activity. Mobile has shifted it even more, and again, like everything else, at a much faster pace. So some of the interesting trends that we're seeing is that, like, one of them that Ed and I always discuss is, and this happened in the past 2 years, that on Thanksgiving, mobile usage is going through the roof. I mean, it could double to triple what we see on a regular day. And part of that is that people are sitting around the dining room table, sitting around watching football games, they're on their other devices. Everyone now is ADD. You're never just watching TV. You're actually on the device at the same time. So when you're doing that, we're seeing Thanksgiving, it's changing. It's also changing time of day. Morning usage has gone up, skyrocketed, at least on mobile, because everyone's waking up, you're seeing your emails. You're seeing emails from our brands and others. You're clicking through at that time. So it's... where it used to be, like everything else, you would have established patterns where you would go. And, we would do day parting based on different search ads, or it could be different, again, if you're doing television ads. It's mobile now is really breaking that all down, where they're not just set blocks where you could target.
Yeah, and the other thing that we've learned, and we do a ton of testing. Anytime we're launching, a new experience or tweaking something, we A/B test it. But the interesting thing that we've tested too is even within our apps are push messages, and to the point around time of day. Like, we're very smart about, because again, the expectation in using those, it's an instantaneous thing. People want to consume it right then and there, especially because the whole notification experience on iOS is pretty poor. So you have to capture that moment for them right then. So and then we're even tweaking the messaging to make sure that there's some urgency around it. Like, we're going to do a flash deal, or we're going to do some sort of last minute, or we're going to announce sort of a, mobile-only play. So all those things we've tested, and we've looked at exact time of day and when we send those messages. We also have an SMS program as well, and we've done the same thing. So we're maximizing and optimizing around the device itself.
For the uninitiated, SMS, short message service, texting, essentially.
Right, and just, I'm sorry, to take that to the next level, we're looking at not just mobile, but now we're working with companies that on email, they'll only generate, like if we have a marketing email going out, it may only be generated when we know that you're online at that time. So it isn't where it gets buried on there. We could actually, through, and this is tough, but through third-party tracking, they're able to identify, okay, this is this is Ed, he just logged in. If you want to shoot him a marketing email, send it to him right now.
So Bryon, one thing that I found sort of fascinating and a little surprising, but makes sense as you lay it out, is how a company that is sending out millions of catalogs is through people who have catalogs are in fact interacting through mobile devices. What's going on with that? What's happening there?
I think part of it is that a lot of the interaction with mobile devices is people when they're on the go. So it's where people will get a catalog or they'll get they'll get the catalog, they'll digest it really quickly. Sometimes they'll go back and read it, but they'll take a quick skim through it, they'll see something they'll like. And it could be the same with broadcasting, they'll see it. But then mobile is when they're actually, they're on their way to work. They're sitting on a couch or sitting in bed, they're away from the desktop. That's the key thing. People always want to be connected. So that's where they're actually finding in terms of, the catalog driving. And it could be whether it's digital, again, I'm talking tablet or smartphone, that the catalog's that trigger. It also, when you think, again, broadcast or catalog, they're small bits of information. What you're getting in an email, what you're seeing is just a small piece. When you actually go online and increasingly on mobile, that's where on HSN you could see some more of the video. Whether it's on, Cornerstone, you could read product reviews of it, or you could actually communicate, instantly with, question and answer with other consumers. So it's, it's like a catalog like anything else. It's a trigger mechanism. And that's why I'm also interested from the people in the room. I'm sure a lot of it now, okay, even though it's traditional broadcast, that the transactions are happening online, not all just happening over the phone.
What about transaction size? Are you seeing a difference based upon whether this desktop, on the phone, transacted through an app, transacted through a mobile website? Any kind of trends there for each of you?
Yeah, I'll start. I would say, early on, I think there was some disparity. I think it was less on mobile. I've seen that now it's almost on par. So we're not seeing dramatic differences in terms of like average order value. It is very, very similar. And even things like, I think there's quotes or references out there around conversion rates, right? This is a smaller screen, you fully expect that that's going to be lower, but at the same time, those have dramatically improved. Obviously, not just because phones have gotten bigger, but also because the experiences have gotten better.
Yeah. And we're seeing the same thing with average order value. It pretty much is equate. It's always real interesting that, periodically we'll say, okay, what were the top 10 selling items on mobile? What were the top 10 selling items on desktop? A lot of times they're overlapping, for a big extent. And with the conversion, smartphone conversion is still lower than desktop and lower than tablet. Mm-hmm. So we've run different experiments to actually try and see that, because the overall, our gut is telling us that the smartphones are being used as research devices a lot of times, but people still may want to transact on a bigger one. A lot of that is going away when we make the process more frictionless. So one of our brands ran a test where unannounced they had a promotion, a special code, that the code you would only see if you were on our mobile app. So you would go to you land on a mobile app, it would splash that up. And this was about a year ago, but still 98% of those code redemptions happened on desktop. It wasn't anywhere on desktop, so it showed, that was some empirical evidence. People are going on smartphones and actually transacting, but then that goes to attribution, because smartphone would not get the credit for that sale internally, which I know has spoken a lot about how to evangelize mobile.
Yeah, and actually, so we see interesting behavior, or very similar behavior as well, where folks do use the mobile device as a research device, but what they'll do is they can add the item to their cart, because we have a shared cart across all of the respective experiences, and then they'll use their desktop later to buy, just because it is simpler and easier and understood, right? But they have a mechanism by which they can at least hold the item, so at least they feel like they can reserve it, and then later they can fulfill the purchase.
Let's hold that thought. I want you to explain that again. You just said that a person who is interacting with your site on a mobile device,
Yes.
doesn't transact, later comes back and asks another similar question about that or some other product on their tablet, and then later comes back and sits down at a desktop, is being interacted with some recognition of who they are.
Yeah, so as long as they've identified themselves, that's sort of key. As long as they've signed in across their respective experiences, we know sort of their full behavior. And not only do we know all of what they're doing, we also allow them to sort of share things like if they favored an item or they save for later or they add to cart. All of that is accessible across, just like any forms of payment or any other our customer information would be available as well. So it is completely ubiquitous across all of our respective experiences, and all you have to simply do is sign in.
And that's the 100% the consumer expectation
Yes.
now. The whole, we'll toss out terms like omni-channel and all that. Consumer really doesn't care. They view you as a brand. However they're communicating with you,
Yes.
it has to be, really, they need to feel that they're communicating with the same company through every one of these devices or channels. So that's if they're signed in and you're not recognizing them, it pisses them off. It's the clearest way to say it. And that's where, you'll lose sales with that.
And the other opportunity there that I know that we both are focused on is personalization, because one, in terms of mobile, right? It's the most personal device that anyone owns. It's how do we get smarter about what we're delivering to the individual, so that when they open your app on a daily basis or whatever it is, you're sort of getting out of their way, and ideally presenting them with something that they truly want to see, or they have an affinity towards. So that's something that we've done as well. And even earlier this year, we even enabled real-time personalization, so that in the moment, as you're browsing or searching, or you do add to cart, any one of those behaviors influence then the personalization messages we deliver, and even start to influence things you see in email. So to Bryan's point, as soon as you've recognized yourself, again, we actually tell you, we're very explicit about it. We'll tell you up front, please sign in, because if you do, you're going to get a better experience. So we try to reinforce that with the customer so that they know the value of doing that.
So can you create the segment by age group and gender?
Yes.
There's some specific products that we have.
Sure.
Like a specific group, female, and certain age.
It's a great question. And so we do, and we know specifically when it comes to mobile, the average age of the consumer skews lower for us. And I referenced before sort of what our demo is. So there's truly a difference in terms of these platforms. Our sweet spot overall for HSN is typically, we say 45 plus. It does skew younger, but we sort of have a target, let's just call it that, right? The range is, you can call it 30 plus. But we know then, based on that profile, we then are leveraging that to then tailor the personalized offers and products that we feature based on that profile.
Do you sort of sniff operating system, Android versus iOS? And if so, have you had experience where one has a greater propensity to transact than another?
It's actually one thing that's interesting is that I think it may have been Expedia that did this 2 years ago. They actually got busted for it, where they detect if you came in on an Apple device, they would show you higher priced properties because they knew you had more propensity to buy. So we are sniffing it out. We tailor, if there are unique attributes to that browser or that device, we'll tailor the experience. But we are not tailoring prices or product or anything. So we want to know it. But with that, and it's not answering it directly, we're finding that even though and this is industry wide, Android devices, the traffic's going up. The bulk of our purchases are still on iOS devices. That's at least, and they are shifting, but I can tell you at Cornerstone, and part of that is our demographic, part of it are, we have a higher, both in terms of income level at each, and iOS is still where they're going to.
It's similar. Our split is probably more equal in terms of traffic, but we do definitely see higher sales and propensity to buy on iOS. Yeah. I think largely, in some cases, it's biased opinion. I think part of it's just the general experience. We try to do our best, but I just think that there's something, yes, I'm biased to iOS, but I think that there's something to it that just, they've kind of got the UI magically right. But in the end, again, we are seeing that same shift. It's starting to balance out.
You're not offering fire extinguishers to Android users.
Not yet.
It's possible, yeah.
talk about the time spent in the particular medium, right? So my vision of the HSN on TV household is that it's sort of on for hours, right? It's not consumed in a quick bite.
Yes.
And a lot of the video properties that are created and assets, of which there are many, are tailored. They're almost as if it's a channel of sort of round-the-clock, 24/7 infomercials. Yet I find it hard to believe that people would watch a 20-minute infomercial on a mobile device. I'm sure some would.
Right.
So how are you meeting that challenge? Are you just starting afresh, or are you somehow repurposing the video assets that you've got with the
It's a good
TV?
question, and it sort of goes to our whole content strategy, and it's even beyond video, but certainly, again, video is sort of at the forefront for us, where we do look at how we can produce the right asset for the medium, because as you described, to sort of expect someone to watch, in some cases, we could have a 45-minute presentation on a single item. That's just not going to happen. But what we do is we actually internally will take those 45-minute presentations and in some cases create a 2-minute asset that then we'll leverage for mobile. It's available across all our platforms, but we actually coin it. It's called Quick Look. So we have a sort of short version of it. If you want to watch the full presentation, it's there. But we give you sort of a quick snippet so that hopefully you can get everything you need to know about the product in a very short amount of time. And then that even extends beyond video. We look at all of our assets. And yes, in many cases, we are repurposing the desktop sort of creative and imagery that then finds its way to mobile, but we're optimizing it. There's a whole slew of technologies behind the scenes that are smart to understand how to best render those images appropriately across these devices.
And it is, it's a buzzword term, but it's very applicable. The whole notion of mobile moments. And those videos are mobile moments. It's like, okay, how do you develop snack-sized content especially for smartphone users? Because people are going in there, they're not, again, desktop, we said they'll sit there and they'll spend, 20 minutes, half an hour just surfing around. It's rarely you're doing that on your smartphone.
Yeah, the analogy, sorry, we get to your question. Analogy I love to use, and I didn't come up with this, but I love it because I think it's very applicable, is I look at smartphones as sort of being hunters. People just want to get in and get out, right? It's like, to me, the example I use is always the Facebook effect, right? You just want to quickly kill a moment, find something, consume something, and then the desktop is you're more like a gatherer, right? Larger size, you have more real estate, you have more time to consume. So, that's the analogy I like to use, and I think that is very applicable to sort of the mobile environment.
Since you're talking about video on mobile and desktop, and you're talking about the differences, is there any other differences that you see with the consumer consuming the videos between desktop and video, besides the shorter time span?
For us, again, because the video itself, in terms of the content, is very much the same. I certainly, again, viewing time is definitely, a difference. But overall, I don't think that we do find in both cases for people that are consuming video, they then do have a higher propensity to buy. So that's why there's so much value in having that video content for us, because again, it's that educational tool that helps sort of, push them hopefully to the next level and down the funnel.
Now, there's something and we'll come back. There's something we're just starting to see as an application that's available on mobile devices. It doesn't really lend itself to desktops or TVs, and that's the ability, some of you have seen this, to have a 360-degree experience, to have content on your mobile device and then hold it in front of you and then move it around, and as it's moving around, it's as if you were moving around inside a scene. What, if anything, have you guys done to exploit that capability of the mobile device that doesn't exist in others?
Yeah, it's a great point. One thing that, and this just was yesterday, so we actually, Serena Williams had her fashion show, her runway show in New York, and she's one of our celebrities. And from there, not only do we stream it live across all of our platforms, but within our mobile app, and only in our mobile app, could you get access to a live 360-degree video. And so you had to download our app. So there are unique, again, value propositions and differentiators that we're leveraging through the app experience for our consumer. And again, it's intended to sort of be that, I don't want to say sort of the best of the best, but we're really garnering that experience to be for that consumer who really loves HSN. So what more can we do for her and give her through that platform?
Do you see a significant lift in your app downloads?
I haven't seen the full measurement. I can tell you I watched sales during that hour, and they were amazing. I will say that.
And at Cornerstone, what we're looking at is augmented reality. That right now we're trialing it at two of our at Frontgate and Ballard Designs, with the whole notion being that we built up, these home brands to billion-dollar companies the hardest way possible, just with people actually looking at a picture without actually seeing how, going to touch it or seeing how it would look in their house. So with the augmented reality app, you could, for certain products, you click, it is app-based, you download the app, and then if you selected a sofa, you could just, you hold your tablet or your iPhone up, and you could see that product within your house. The dimensions are right, the scale's right, you could go close, you could change color. And that's going to be, we're not talking 10 years out. Within the next 3 years, I think that's going to be one of the big jumps. And that is something unique to just mobile devices that you can't do on desktop.
Yeah, again, it's interesting because I'm sort of waited with bated breath, right, for iOS 10 to launch, right, which is supposed to be today. And, and one of the features that is sort of launching is they're sort of adding new capabilities to iMessage, right? And I'm assuming the question will come up, so I'll talk a little bit about it, but just the advent of sort of Messenger and sort of bots and all those things are sort of like on the forefront now. Everyone's talking about it, but just the fact that everyone is using those tools for those peer-to-peer communications, it's going to be very interesting to see how that evolves. And I fully expect through those mediums that people are going to be sort of sharing products and allowing people to buy, and not just sharing an emoji or sharing a sticker, like they're going to share a product. And that's going to become a reality.
It's happening in Asia.
Exactly.
So that's
right.
They say that the chat commerce from that is going to be.
And another thing I'll say is it's going to be interesting to see the shift because, one, for us, and this is part of what we call our distributed commerce strategy. Yes, I certainly want, and we're building these digital experiences for people to buy through those platforms. But I also want to be able to allow people to buy wherever they may be. Like, where's the intent? Where's it happening? If someone wants to shop. Or even on Facebook, right? One of the things that we've been testing, going back to video, is quick, short, direct response videos. We sell some unique items, and honestly, if you love pineapple and you haven't bought the pineapple core or cutter, you should, because it's amazing. You can cut a pineapple in no time, or even our avocado slicer. They're amazing products. But these are unique things that we've done on Facebook. And even we've done it to audiences that are not our core customer. And that's the nice thing about those platforms is you can go after what they call custom audiences. So you can tailor it to people who haven't or aren't familiar with you and really go after acquisition opportunities. And we're really leading with these unique items and these really quick videos. I'm sure most of you have seen the tasty videos, the cooking ones. Very similar in that intent, right? Is how do you sort of hit someone with a quick sort of, wow, I didn't know I needed this, but I do. And you're doing it on a platform, they're still coming back to HSN to buy, but now we're leveraging these mediums outside of our standard sort of four-wall execution to find those new customers.
Yeah, they're acquisition lead items.
Exactly.
Same thing, Cornerstone, not, don't have the pineapple slicer yet. But, we know with certain brands, when we're doing prospecting, we are advocating different products out there than to our core customers because of that.
Right.
Yeah.
So you mentioned that you're seeing commerce inside of chat or messaging in Asia. Mm-hmm. Why don't you describe for the group exactly what that is and what it is you're seeing? Because I think that, it's important for one of the reasons why we come together is to sort of learn about new things that are coming that we haven't seen in front of our nose yet. So how does that work?
I actually get flashbacks to this because back in the year 2000, I did a startup company where we were building on AOL. You could go to you added this specific friend on AOL, but it was a company. You could put in an ISBN code from a book and you could transact it. So this has been there for a while, but now in Asia, the whole notion where you could go and let's say you go to Frontgate, or I'll say, you went to Frontgate, you could say, hey, I'm looking for a couch with this color. And you could actually just through a chat bot have an automated, it's kind of like IVR in a way, but it's over a chat mechanism. So with Facebook Messenger, it's being used for actually a lot more customer service in terms of customers are using chat to speak directly to customer reps. And it's very different than what you see online now, where you say, hey, chat with us and a box pulls up and there's a time delay and are people looking at manuals. This is a lot more smarter and it's trying to use machine learning so for that interaction. And then the same thing, and there are some, 1-800-Flowers is trying it, I believe, on Facebook Messenger. And it's been mixed reviews right now because people are saying, when you go, oh, I want to buy roses for my wife. They'll send it back and you can actually, if you have a login info, you could transact immediately through chat. And that's part of the distributed commerce philosophy. But right now, in a lot of the ones that have rolled out in the US, it's not that easy yet, or it isn't that easy. It's not enough of a incremental time savings to actually get people to use it.
Well, it also, it's interesting because going back to the roots of HSN, for example, there's always been the perception that a certain amount of the repeat customers, the core customers, actually would like to create, they get on the phone and they chat for a long time with the phone agent, and they're creating, maybe they're lonely, they want to talk about stuff, they also buy things, they talk about their lives, they talk about the product. Unbelievably expensive to do that with a call center, yet it reflects a real human need in the audience, a part of the shopping experience. And what you're describing is through machine learning, sort of recreating that kind of experience where on the mobile device, the person is talking with someone about this transaction for an extended period of time, or in this case, a robot, but nonetheless, maybe getting many of the same kinds of psychic satisfaction that one used to get from that call center interaction.
And where chat's also, whether it's chat or text or WhatsApp, it's in terms of social sharing, where people now, again, more millennials, but before they're buying an outfit, they're sending it to their friends, saying, what do you think about that? And getting it back. So that's where the whole customer journey is expanding. And as a brand, what I find fascinating is a way you have to give up some control. That brands are not 100% in control of everything like they used to be. Where the consumer is increasingly now in terms of what they're writing about your product, how they're sharing your product. And the whole point of with sharing products, that's all happening over mobile for the most part.
Yeah, the one thing I'll sort of tail on, which I think is interesting, is the whole concept of sort of voice search and natural language processing, right?
Voice search.
Which I think is something that's evolving very, very quickly. And I think the olden days, it almost seems archaic now, where you go to a site and there's a search box and you type, red shirt. Like, it just seems like it's not enough. Whereas, what I really want to say is I need a, red shirt for this event or whatever, or I'm going camping, or like what are sort of like, it's the context of it that's missing, right? To where the opportunity is just getting so much more advanced. And I think it's just natural for phones, obviously, since you can talk to them, for it to become, an agent for how it can help really find things. And I think that's something we're going to see over time with brands, is that you're really going to have to reinvent how people discover your products that you sell, and even forms of like attribution, and how much sort of the product information and everything about it needs to be so much better for people to find. As well, the natural language processing should help, because these advanced and machine learning tools should help sort of bring some of that forward. But arguably, I think the whole shift in terms of how people discover items will change.
Okay. And if anyone has does anyone have an Echo device from Amazon? If you have one, once you get used to that with voice-based, it's not commerce yet. Right. You just walk into the room, say, Echo, or, Alexa, what's the weather today? What's this? It's going to become, at first it's a jump. The first time you use it, it's strange.
Right.
Instantly you go to voice. And, I think part of it, that's how we're used to communicating. So, yeah. So commerce is going to be what they're, we were at an event back out, again, it was out west for NRF. And we saw a whole panel of startups, and out of these 40 startups that presented, at least half of them were building extensions for Alexa, for the Amazon
Echo.
Yep.
They're all like, okay, if you want to track, Amazon, where's my package? Amazon, and it's aggregating that. So that's
it's going to commerce, because it's basically Amazon sitting there listening to what you want.
Right.
Yes.
They're not going to forget to bring up selling you.
and all these third party. It's always interesting. You track where the app developers are spending their time. A lot of them are spending it on the Echo device.
So, where are you spending your time right now? What is that? Maybe that's proprietary. What's not proprietary that you can talk about that you're really working on?
You want to start?
I'll say, well, the areas, some of it's going to reflect what was said earlier. Personalization is a big part in terms of making sure, again, without being creepy, but making sure we're delivering the right experience to the user, the right message at the right time. And some of those are becoming expectations. Where if you go to a website, people do not want to see recommended products that have no bearing to them. And it's easy to do at one level. To take it to the next level is tough. And then the whole key to that is the next part where we're looking to focus a lot is at making sure we're identifying users. If someone's on the site and they're anonymous, it's less of a positive experience for them, and it's also harder for us to market, especially across devices. So personalization is a big area of focus. The whole, again, with smartphones, making sure we're presenting the right experience to the customer. Distributed commerce, which we haven't spoken about as much, and I'll just tee it off, and Annette, if you want to take it from there. But the notion of distributed commerce is where you could actually, right now, let's say you wanted to buy from any brand, or, we'll say, from HSN, or you want to buy from Garnet Hill, you have to go to that website to purchase. Distributed commerce is going to take that and really blend content, commerce, and community, where you don't have to be on our website to buy our products. You can buy them in third parties. So.
Yeah, I mean, so for HSN, actually the priorities are very much the same. Personalization is sort of top of the list. We talked about it a little bit earlier, it's key. And there's an expectation now for the consumer. Obviously not to sort of get too creepy, but at the same time, there's an expectation that at least I'm telling you things about me, and I'm expecting you to help me sort of discover things much, much easier. So that is key. And again, how that dovetails into mobile is certainly an opportunity for us. And I'll just generally say mobile. I mean, again, I feel like we're never done. These devices and the experiences evolve so quickly. I mean, again, even with, I mentioned iOS 10 coming out today, I mean, there's optimizations, we've had to make to support that. And not that sort of, the gestural navigation or, things have changed dramatically over time, but there's certainly tweaks. So I always say, like, someone always asks, like, when are we going to be done with optimization? And my answer is never. Like, we're always going to be doing something. Content is big for us. I talked a little about video before, but again, is how do we continue to extend and find the right types of content that we want to place across these platforms, and even sort of how do we evolve some of that into more of an editorial opportunity in terms of, and not just necessarily just selling you this one thing, but helping you to get educated and really feel our brand and get more sort of married to our brand. And then lastly, distributed commerce, as Bryon sort of described. So for us, it's exactly what he said. I mean, there's an opportunity where there's an expectation at some point where someone does not have to come to an HSN or a Cornerstone property to physically log in and buy. They can buy anywhere they may be. And an example of what we've done, and it's not sort of, commerce isn't fully embedded into the experience all the way up front, but I referenced sort of Serena's fashion show, but even we had streams on Vogue, we had streams on people.com, and from those experiences, you could actually shop her collection. So the expectation is that right there I'm watching a video, it should be shoppable. I don't have to leave or stop watching it and go to a whole nother experience. I should be there right in the moment. If I want to buy it, I should be able to.
Yeah, Pinterest is the other, with Pinterest buyable pins. Pinterest is a great customer acquisition source. People are going there to get inspired. If they want to see something, buy right from there. And it's through APIs to our back end and all that. They're really taking them from there, then to a new site that may have not been going through the site. There are benefits in terms of building a relationship.
Yes.
But it's where, the whole notion of transactions outside your core property.
Personalization, as you said, is kind of a touchy subject. Where you cross the barrier to your shooting.
Right.
Yeah. So, do you do any outside research? Okay, other than looking at sales on tests to see the consumer reaction, hearing from them from a more testimonial than less analytical and more based comments.
Right. So I'll speak from my end. So there's a couple of things we do. One, we do actually quite a number of focus groups in many cases when we're looking at developing new experiences, whether it be personalization, mobile, or anything. I can tell you we're just about to go through a session of it for mobile because we have some unique things that we want to try to do. And so we conceptualize it internally, and then we actually do and get in front of customers and actually allow them to tell us what they like and what they do or don't like. And then the other thing, which is less of what you speak to, but the other thing we also do in all of our cases with personalization or any of our tests is we always keep out a control group. So we're always keeping a population of people who don't see any form of the personalization to make sure we can measure it and effectively know how well it's working and make sure that through the customer life cycle, we're not alienating them or hurting them in any way.
And we do have, since we still have call centers. So what I'm always on the phone with the call center manager saying, okay, if anyone calls up about that they think that it got into the creepy territory, raise that to us. So we do have that ongoing feedback mechanism. Again, it's less us going out there, but making sure we're very responsive, or at least that we have clear channels in case we do hear any back.
So we have a few more minutes in the session. Of the folks who were gathered here, and obviously you responded to a statement that said this was about mobile and mobile commerce. How many here are with an organization that actually has an app? Okay. How many here work in selling product where there's at least a mobile optimized website?
And from that, if I could take one path of that, one point of differentiation is that HSN, they have a very robust mobile app, as well as the mobile websites. At Cornerstone, we've taken a strategy to focus, for the most part, on just optimizing our mobile websites. Part of that is because
That
of...
was my question.
Yeah.
Why do you want to push your customers to download the app? What is really the benefit? Because in my opinion, the first customers will probably get a lower conversion rate for those customers, because then they need to download the app and maybe they forget, they get a phone call and they just didn't buy the product.
Yep.
So that's where I wanted to take.
Your description is very accurate, and that's something we think about. And actually, we try to get smart about when we want to introduce, or we think we should introduce the app through that life cycle. And the expectation is, I'm not expecting you the first time you come to any one of our HSN properties for you to download the app. That's not sort of a goal we measure. What we try to do with our app experience, once we sort of have you, is try to push unique features that we think would be of value to you. So for example, like it could be a loyalty play, right? We have a casual gaming site where you can win tickets. And as part of that, you could then redeem those tickets for special mobile only offers, right? Or there may be a unique mobile deal that we're going to offer that's only available in the app. And I mentioned the other thing earlier about the 360, that's what we look to do, is give you that, again, that reason for want and need the app. And the other thing I'll say about the app, and this is something, that we're evolving, is I look at it as being sort of the most connected experience with the consumer, and really being sort of that concierge-like experience. And we talk about things like personalization, or talk about customer service. Like, to me, there's no better place in that experience where you could get it right.
And that it goes, you really need specific use cases.
Right.
For HSN, there's some great use cases for why people want to use the app. At Cornerstone, we have some, but they haven't been to the point where we've, again, strategically said, okay, we don't want to build an app where people are just going to check once every 6 months. It's not cost effective, and it's not going to suit our purposes. So when we're doing virtual reality or something, that's a specific tool to use. So again, it has to be driven by that. Otherwise, you're right. Just building an app for the sake of it doesn't make sense.
No.
I'm just curious on both your opinions on adaptive versus responsive design for mobile.
Oh, that's a great question.
Yes.
So I can tell you, when we first started, we went adaptive.
I'm going to stop.
Okay.
Explain for the group.
I will.
What the distinction is between the two.
So there's been a lot of debate in the industry around how you build a mobile experience. You can build it responsive. I'll start with that one, which means you're really building one experience for both the desktop and mobile. And really all it's doing is sort of repositioning itself and re-rendering itself on mobile.
So the page auto formats the
Correct.
size and which elements, so you're building
Right.
it once and it
Right.
scales up and down.
Adaptive is more of an approach where there is really unique experiences, also knows how to render itself differently, but it's really built not with the intent that it's one size fits all, in essence, or one size to sort of re-render itself. So we did go adaptive initially, and saw benefits to that just because we were sort of building a unique experience for mobile. What we learned over time, operationally, it was tough to manage, because the same folks who were sort of pushing content to our desktop experience day in and day out were also being asked to do it for mobile. And rather than do it twice, or in some cases 3 times for a tablet, we consolidated and we went responsive, so that legitimately from our content management system, we push once and it re-renders itself. I've seen a lot of debate sort of re-emerge within the space, where I see more and more people now going back to adaptive, because what they've learned is that they've created sort of a cookie cutter experience and the customer's not reacting well. So I think it varies by brand. I think you really need to figure out for yourself, and really for us, I'll say it all comes down to testing. What we've learned, and so again, I mentioned sort of our pathway to where we went. We are still responsive, but what we've learned is, in some cases, we will hide content from our mobile experience, because our customer doesn't want it, or it's getting in the way in terms of path to purchase. So we've tested over time to figure out what works and what doesn't. So again, it's based on the brand, but all I can say is test, test, test. I mean, that's the way you're going to learn.
Conversion rates are a little higher on adaptive, but it takes twice as much effort.
Exactly.
A 0.5% gain.
Yes, you got it.
Yeah, and that's but responsive. There were issues with speed that they should be over now.
And
so
yes.
that was part of it also.
Correct.
You have to be much. It's more challenging and responsive. The path to get to responsive is a more expensive, I believe, path up front, and their organizational because you have to think of it differently. The whole notion of breakpoints and people
Exactly.
are used to templates. So yeah, there's no clear winner yet. But yeah.
I believe you said that your core audiences are a little older. Do you think that would relate to products that are more in the 18 to 24-year-old experience in terms of adaptive versus,
No, I don't, I think for us, again, it's not necessarily the method in terms of how you're building it. It just comes down to the right content. And I think that's the thing you have to learn over time. And I think that's where the personalization piece comes in. It's determining what does that consumer want, and also based on customer segment. If someone's new to HSN, again, we offer a unique item every day. We call it our Today Special. It launches at midnight, right? It's our best deal of the day. For a new customer, they have no idea what that means. And what we need to challenge ourselves with, is that the right thing to present to a consumer when they're coming for that first time versus should I lead with national brands or should I lead with other products because we think there's a higher propensity. So those are things that we're figuring out, and that's where it sort of varies based on demographic, but it all comes back to personalizing the experience.
And what we see with demographics is security messaging is big. Like when we launched PayPal, and there was a lot of internal debate saying, okay, well, our demographics are older. Do they really care about PayPal? It took off like a rocket because of all the notion about security. They actually felt so. There are different messages in a way. We do message in different ways, and a lot of it is based on our demographics. So I think some of that is really the difference. Where a lot of millennials, they
expect it, yeah.
Yeah, they don't put second thought between putting
Right.
all their personal information online and sharing it, let alone to a brand that they know.
So as moderator, I'm gonna say that Ed and Bryon will stick around for a few
Yes.
minutes if there's additional questions we didn't have time to get to. But one thing I wanted to say is these two gentlemen, unlike many people who appear at a panel like this, have a tremendous amount to offer in terms of their experience and knowledge in the space, and are not here because they have anything to sell to any of you. They're really coming from almost another world to share some of their experience and their projections of where the world is moving. And I say that because I think we owe them a great round of applause for spending their time.